Welcome, everyone, to the NJ1ST podcast. My name is Ryan McDonald. I have a special guest with me today, Legislative District 2, a Libertarian candidate taking on the Republican and Democrats, taking on that uni party, Shawn Peck. Thank you for joining me today, Shawn.
Thanks for having me.
And this is Legislative District 2, a state Senate candidate. It's the second Senate candidate I've had on the podcast. And this is Atlantic County. So if anybody's in Atlantic County in New Jersey, or if you have any friends, share this podcast, this episode to them. And if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, Shawn, what got you involved in politics and why you're running for New Jersey's state Senate.
Sure. So I got involved initially with the Republican Party. Right around the time that the tides were starting to change a little bit in Legislative District 1. I became active with Michael Testa's campaign and with some of the other candidates that had run in Cumberland County. That was a time where politics were kind of changing in that area. Where it was going from, being under a Democrat rule for the last, 25, 30 plus years. And that was right around the time that, the shift had moved further to the right. I got involved in supporting Michael as a Senate candidate. And I also got involved with the party locally. I've always been, in some way, shape, or form, even though maybe registered as a Republican, always libertarian in philosophy. But when I moved to Atlantic County, there was something that was very different about the way that Atlantic County Republicans govern versus, what I've seen elsewhere. And I understand the reason for it, but it doesn't mean that I have to really like it. It's mostly attributed to the unions and the power that they kind of wield in this district. So, Local 54 controls a big part of the narrative and, the way politics function in Atlantic County. One of the things that, when I had moved here, obviously the only Senate Republican that voted for Phil Murphy's budget the first time around in his seat was Palestina. And I was like, how is this happening? Right? Like, he's the only one who did it. And then this last budget, bigger and worse than the last one before it. And there were even more defectors this time around. And I'm like, what the hell is happening in the Republican Party? Like, this is supposed to be the party that represents fiscal conservatism, and it's anything but that. And that was kind of the impetus, behind my campaign, where I was just looking at this and I'm like, how in the world can you, purport yourself to be a conservative and stand for fiscal conservatism and, conservative values and be anything but that when you're voting for, a budget that earmarks, money for a whole bunch of really superfluous, just junk, like that Jersey City, arts museum, that the taxpayers are paying for. And some of these, it's just like, I was like, how could anybody support that budget? And that was, really, what lit a fire under me to say, you know what, like I got to do something and, and at least, make my voice heard to make sure that there's, somebody out there speaking out for the things that some people just, for whatever reason, and I alluded to the reason that they're not, but that those things are being brought to the forefront.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. I have similar experience with LD1 with Mike Testa in the past, and also down there, South Jersey, J.R. Carmen, New Jersey Constitutional Republicans. There really is the Libertarian. There is a conservative. There is a grassroots patriot. I guess coalition down there. That's why it has the name of a South Jersey conservative. But you're right to say that for some reason, Republicans who are elected go along to get along and vote with the Democrats to get reelected. Up here in North New Jersey, where I'm from, it's Tom Kean Jr. In 2019, he voted for that budget with Governor Murphy. And what did Republicans do in return? They elected him a congressman so he could vote with McCarthy and Biden. Don't know. That's a whole nother game. But true to your point to say that there is the Uni Party, Palestina. I looked up his votes. He just votes yes on basically every bill. He just votes yes on everything.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like electric school buses, you know, like additional gun regulations. It's like, I like, and like one of the things that I was just like looking at, like I don't know how many people are familiar with the Freedom Index and you know and how they kind of track the way you know legislators vote and whether it's pro-liberty or it's anti-liberty. But you know, I mean, anybody that just on the surface to look at that, he's got a 17% you know rating, and it's like you know how could you be voting constitutionally 17% of the time and have an R in front of your name? That is the part that is the most troubling and confounding to me. And you know, that was the entire reason that I decided that I was going to run, and you know, and run on a you know under the Libertarian Party's banner, because you know the Libertarian Party does stand for you know limited government, fiscal conservatism, and all of the things that the Republican Party should like if the Republican Party did what the Republican Party says that they stand for, there would be no Libertarian Party.
Right. You're right.
So that's I mean that's the way I look at it. Like you know, if they did what they were supposed to do, our party wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm. And I think the new FDU poll that came out showed that Democrats get that independent vote unless there is more of a conservative or libertarian position coming up, and then it goes to Republican. So you're right to say that you know people who vote Libertarian will vote Republican if it's more aligned to their issues. And I myself have experience with the New Jersey Libertarian Party. Was with them 2017. Brought the Mises Caucus. I proudly wear that badge half-heartedly to New Jersey.
That's the right caucus.
Yeah, they have they're active other places, you know, outside of the tri-state area, right? But we can talk about maybe the county ballot lines and the duopoly that exists. Unfortunately, New Jersey is the only state in the whole entire United States, that has those county ballot lines where people unfortunately vote down the ballot their party. Have you ever yourself tried to primary a Republican? I saw that Palestina didn't have any primary contenders.
I know, and that was a criticism that I got from my friends in the Republican Party. And you know, what I'm going to say is that the reason that I didn't primary Palestina was because I know how the system works, and the system works in a way that the best and the brightest and the best ideas don't always prevail. And there is very much, you know, I don't want to call it a boys club, but for a lack of better words, that's kind of what it is. There are certain people that are aligned, entrenched, whatever the case may be. And, you know, I didn't, you know, have that dialogue, you know, in Atlantic County that I had in Cumberland County, because, you know, I had a direct dialogue with the chair in Cumberland County and directly with somebody who eventually became the senator there. But yeah, I didn't have that in Atlantic County. But now there's a very strange thing that's happening where, you know, these dark money groups and these people on the left are trying to use me and my candidacy as a pawn to try and split the conservative or the right wing vote. And, you know, that to me is very troubling, and it's not something that I'm willing to, you know, to willfully go along with and to be a part of their process and how they're trying to play this thing out. And that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. I just got word the other day that there was mail that hit in Atlantic County that I have nothing to do with, that is coming from, these groups that are, attempting to, to play a role in the outcome of our election here, unfortunately. So that's kind of part of the challenges that you get when you're a third party candidate, is that, the people on the left or whatever side they think that they're able to have some sort of influence, kind of, they meddle in these things. And, that's something that we're dealing with right now, actually.
And yeah, we could talk about the vote by mail. I know the New Jersey Republican parties are promoting that, not really looking into the fraud at all. But I do actually have good news that 2022 audit in Mercer County that happened, the same group is now going to file a lawsuit, and it's coming up this 2023. So we'll be able to talk about that. But we can segue over to something maybe more of your forte, the economy. The housing market, the state budget. We just hit on the state budget, but maybe more about the economy, inflation. And one thing that a lot of viewers, ironically, I'm only 30 years old and I've been doing the NJ1ST brand for a couple of years now, but the majority of people who watch my channel are retirees, older people who are involved in politics, who want to see their I guess their pensions taken care of and stuff like that. And cost of living is something that comes up so much in the comments, and everybody wants to hear about the cost of living. I suppose it has to do with just the inflation in people's pensions, right? The pensions aren't increasing with the prices of everything. So if you want to just talk about the economy and your take on everything.
So, I mean, everybody knows that the hidden tax, the most pervasive tax, is the inflation tax. And, I don't know that you can point a finger to any one actor. I think you could blame Trump as much as you could blame Biden for the things that we're dealing with. And obviously from a monetary policy perspective, the pain that we're feeling today, and the pain that home buyers and people that are just paying their credit card bills are feeling on a daily basis, is attributed to the fact that we have to have such a tight monetary policy, in order for the Fed to solve a problem that they created. So as a wearing my libertarian hat, I would be the first to say that it would be great to see the Fed ended. But for a realist, I also know that the Fed will not be ended, and the Fed more than likely just needs to be reformed. And if we had, if we had some reform, within that, it comes down to, government spending. Like, the Fed can only do so much, and the reason why everything is so unaffordable and so crazy right now is because you've got a central bank that's trying to, crank up the volume so that they can, bring down inflation. And you've got a wildly out of control government that just will not stop spending. And it's not just at a federal level, like at a state level. Like, you look at this last budget.
Whoop. We lost Shawn real quick.
Budget. Are you
there? He is. I can hear you now.
Yeah,
let's see if I remove you, put you back in. This happened to one other person before too, but I can hear you.
You can hear me, but you can't see me, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, in any event, I mean, what's happening is really, driven by the actions of government. And, until people realize that eventually what's going to happen is, they're going to run out of other people's money to spend, and we can't spend our way out of these problems. The sooner the better. And that's regardless of your political affiliation. It's just a matter of, government off the rails on a crazy train.
I myself reported in real time as it happened, Mr. Thomas Massey, Mr. No. Oh, there you are. You're back.
I'm back.
Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massey Jr. was the only one who stood up for Americans' purse during the COVID pandemic. Donald Trump, who I support, asked for him to be thrown out. He was a third-rate grandstander. But he was right. He was right. And we're suffering the inflation and the disembowelment of the dollar. Sorry to be graphic, but and he's right. Okay. Now,
I mean, listen, there's a lot
let's
of people
talk about that for a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people that have been critical about what's happening in the national politics with, Gates and throwing out the Speaker of the House. But I mean, anybody that looks at this, right? Like, if you look at it and it stands on principle alone, 100%, they did the right thing, right? Like, if you say that we're going to have clean bills and that we're not going to, conflate, spendings of, the American taxpayers' dollars of things that are essential with all of the fat that gets rolled into these bills. And the same thing happens in Trenton in the State House. You look at that last budget, they didn't even know what was in it. They were voting on a budget that they had no idea what the line items are. So this is just the way that, unfortunately, these things get, get passed. And from the federal level to the state level, it's absolutely insane to me. But I just wish they had more of a plan when they decided that they were going to throw the guy out, that they would have had somebody and they would have had the votes to replace him.
And I was at work today and all yesterday, and I believe the news was reporting that they're still not in session, right? They're still trying to see who's going to make a run. Jim Jordan didn't get enough votes to begin with.
Yeah.
Right here for New Jersey, we have Chris Smith. He voted yes. Jeff Van Drew voted yes. And Tom Kane Jr., we don't know. He isn't telling us the way he voted. It was it's still secret ballot, I believe, the way that they're doing it. But that's just some information for New Jersey in more and for the federal budget and all the inflation, like we're talking about, all the money printing that's going on. Yeah. And for layman's terms for New Jersey, if you know about the school funding, New Jersey's school funding through our property taxes, and through my research, I went through Jay Weber's seminar. He outlines the whole thing. It's great. I have it as a resource, but it was property taxes first that funded schools. And then they added in state income tax to supplement that. Now, we got to get rid of that state income tax, or else everybody my age is going to leave and go to Florida, Texas, New Hampshire. And it's terrible. If you are elected as a New Jersey state senator, libertarians come across as radical. That's not even the word to use, but just for, I guess, colloquial terms, we'll say that. How will you get across the aisle to a Republican, let alone a Democrat, that we should abolish the state income tax?
The way that I look at the school funding, and I don't like. There's a lot of things that Chris Christie did, and you were talking about some of these other things, which I guess we could circle back to, but the gas tax being one of them. One of the good things that he proposed was a fairness formula. In school funding, which is something that I support if you're going to have government-run schools. But I believe that having a market-based solution that would create competition, whether it's, charter schools or whether it's, from the perspective of private schools, I've been very clear on my position of not supporting vouchers, because I believe that vouchers would inevitably expand the purview of the state, when the goal should be to partition the state as much as possible from education. And we've seen that in, like, Milwaukee has a system that's similar to that. It's a voucher system. It's been in place for 30 plus years. Like, if the voucher system worked and the goal of dismantling the state ever was going to happen, it would have happened there, but it didn't. And the reason why it didn't happen is because it expanded the purview, where the private schools were all too happy to say, you know what, we'll accept your voucher if the money follows the student. And
Mhm.
if you have the private schools accepting the vouchers, and you have, you know, all of these other options open, you're expanding the state's purview, because they're providing the funds
Mhm.
for, you know, those people to go to those schools. So I don't support vouchers, but I support school choice, and I think that, you know, anybody, regardless of your zip code, should be able to get a quality, high level education, and it should be the choice of the parent where they're, you know, going to send their child, whether that's a private school that they electively you know, decide to send them to and subsidize, or whether it's charter or a, you know, a quality public school. Because let's just face it, especially in a state like New Jersey, a lot of people's decisions and real estate values are tethered, you know, to the value of the school district, and the property
Right.
value is, you know, inherently, you know, tied to that.
Great insight, and I'm definitely gonna watch this over. That's how I learn. I watch things over and over until I get it. I would like to invite you back on with we're not finished, but I'd like to invite you back on with another guest who I've had who's in favor of school choice, who is trying this voucher program that has from other states. Sounds like you have a slight difference with a Milwaukee model. I'd love for you to introduce what you know to her, and maybe we can set that up for another date.
Yeah.
I would just like to say the only other time myself went to Rutgers Newark University for political science, and the only other time you heard about vouchers, one was the downfall of the Soviet Union when they had to turn their whole markets in the capital, and then everybody in the Soviet Union got vouchers. They were able to have a part of the company, but they just sold it off to Westerners. And then second was, while in Newark, was the charter schools and voucher.
Right.
And you're right. It was in Newark, charter school and voucher. It was subsidized almost completely. It was governmental completely.
Right.
So I would love to have you back on to have a better, thorough discussion with school choice and all that. But if there's anything else with economy, we'll definitely move on to the next question.
Well, yeah, I mean that you know, the whole the idea of vouchers. I mean, it was a Milton Friedman,
Mm,
you know, concept. Like, he was the one who was pushing it, and he was a libertarian. But,
mhm,
you know, anybody who really looks at it from the pure libertarian perspective is going to look at that and say that it is antithetical to libertarian principle to be pro vouchers. And I've had this argument with people within the party
mhm. Can
extensively.
imagine.
There's people that disagree with me wholly, and I understand why they think that it's a better way to, you know, to do it. But
Right.
I fundamentally disagree.
Right. And another issue that we have relating to humans, people, whether when it comes to where you live or where you're migrating to, illegal immigration in New Jersey, we are a sanctuary state. A lot of people don't know, through the good work that myself and other grassroots patriots did, there's one county in New Jersey that is not a sanctuary county, and that's Sussex. And there was a commissioner push at the time. They were called freeholders all around the state. We tried to have sanctuary counties, but it didn't really work. Now it seems like New York mayors, a lot of Democrat mayors, are having problems because something I don't really agree with: Republican governors sending busloads of illegal migrants up north. I understand it's a tit for tat sort of thing, but if you'd like to have a little discussion on the border states, the crisis going on down there, and our own state, which is heavily immigrated too.
Yeah, it's a travesty, and I'll tell you that this directly impacts legislative district two, because they made a push to move some of those migrants that they're not able to
Mm, that's right.
take care of in New York. They wanted to
That's right.
ship them to the Atlantic City airport, and not only Republicans but Democrats, the very people that are advocating these, you know, these policies of sanctuary, you know, states and cities and
Mhm.
counties, or whatever the case may be, they came out. Like, when you have Marty Small standing on a stage, you know, with everybody else saying that we can't be the dumping ground, like, that has to tell you that, you know, that everybody agrees. Like, there's universal agreement that it's, you know, that it's bad policy. And, our sheriff here, who's, more of a social worker than he is, a sheriff, a constitutional sheriff, he had initially put a statement out, in support of the migrants coming to the Atlantic City airport. And then when the people in his own party pushed back on it, he very quickly deleted, that post and tried to walk it back and didn't, show up to that, press conference that they had, where there was a unified front, Democrats and Republicans both saying that this is crazy. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the ability to support this, and kind of pushing back on it. Even Phil Murphy himself went to Biden and told him, hey, listen, we can't do this. So, New York's paying the price. The number I saw was something like $10 million a day is what they're spending in, housing these migrants. And they're taking over neighborhoods in Staten Island. It's a mess. So, but I mean, to be fair, if you say that you're a sanctuary state and then the people that are seeking sanctuary get sent to your state, it's like you almost brought that on yourself. I don't understand how you could say that you're pro sanctuary anything and then they show up and it's like, oh, hey, we can't support this. Well, maybe you should end the policy. And the thing that really upsets me is that they attempted to bring forth a resolution, in our county here. And the only person, Dennis Levinson was one,
yes.
that was for it. And there was somebody else, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but there were two Republicans that brought it up and nobody seconded the motion and they never took a vote on it. And it was just kind of nothing happened. Right. But the whole idea was to basically vacate, the whole policy of having, sanctuary in the county. So, I say kudos to any, county that did the work, to make that happen. But just unfortunately here in Atlantic County, it hasn't happened. And, we're in a situation where we could be potentially paying the price of, having those sort of, crazy policies.
And if anybody watching wants that full story that I have on the push for the county resolutions for anti-sanctuary states, I'll definitely be gladly to tell you all that. We can finish up that question on what libertarians definitely are well-versed in with the welfare state. And a lot of people know that immigrants, illegal or just legal, but illegal immigrants come to the United States illegally, maybe because they're criminals, but also because they're fleeing persecution, whether it be a communist state, terrorism, or what they say are economic migrants. And this is something that we can probably talk about, is that economic migrants isn't a good enough excuse. The reason why that they are called economic migrants is because people are coming to America not just because of the land of opportunity and the opportunity for them to gain their own wealth, and just like any of us, but also because of the benevolence and the welfare state that we take care of our own. A lot of people don't think we do, and maybe we don't as good as we do, but the services are there. They're maybe being exploited, but the services are there. The money's there. It's being used every day. And that's why people are coming here. If you want to speak on anything in LD2 where it comes to the welfare state.
Well, the welfare state, unfortunately, in Atlantic County is alive and well. And it's not just individual welfare, it's corporate welfare. And, the casinos have, been we just live in this state where they're, the people at the top are picking winners and losers. And it's just one of those things where, that just shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't have government deciding who the winners and the losers are. You shouldn't have people that are infinitely, in a hammock, from the individual perspective. And that includes corporations. The CRDA is a problem here in Atlantic County. The casino commission, they're a problem here in Atlantic County. And one of the things that happened, there was a lawsuit. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was around the fact that the casinos were given this, this sweetheart deal where they were able to say that because they had a pilot program, because we weren't able to appropriately assess the value of the casinos in the district, that they entered into this arrangement that there was going to be, a pilot program for them to make payments based on the revenue. And one of the revenues that they were, very clever in crafting that it would be excluded was online gaming. And when the statute is written in such a way that the value add for the real estate, which I don't believe was ever properly assessed and hasn't been properly accounted for going forward, the value add is the fact that you need a brick and mortar location in order to have the online gaming in the first place. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what you think the real estate value itself is, you also have to account for the fact that you now have a new revenue source, and that the license is tied to the brick and mortar location. So how can you not add that in? Just like, in any other type of real estate that we would look at something at, like what the cash flow is, what the free cash flow is on the property, regardless of what the sales are in an area, you're going to do a calculation of what that also brings to the value of the real estate itself. And that's not something, for whatever reason, in government, they've, decided to do. And they say, okay, we'll do this backroom deal. We'll exclude your biggest part of your money, because online gaming, they're crying poor saying, oh, we're not making money from our online gaming. It's because
Profit.
we have all these, but at the end of the day, meanwhile, they're crying poor, but they're absorbing, or they're like Hard Rock developed their own proprietary system. Like these other casinos, they're buying up the companies. Yeah. They're buying the companies that are providing the technology for them to be able to have the platform to do it. Mm-hmm. So, like, to me, that's just not right. And there's got to be some level of accountability for the ratepayers, because I can't do that. I can't say, hey, I'm a high income earning W-2 guy, exclude everything that I earn from my W-2, but I'll pay the tax on the little bit of money that I make from my 1099. Like, I don't get to do that. So
right,
why
that's
should a corporation,
corporate welfare that you're mentioning, right?
Yeah, it's awful.
The subsidies they're getting too as well. And for Hard Rock Cafe, I bet you it's even harder, because that's the Native Americans. They have their own land and the monopoly down there. I would love to pick your ear on that. I ran a campaign in Jacksonville specifically to try and bust the monopoly of Hard Rock Cafe just last year. It'd be funny to talk to you about it. But that's great insight. I'm again it's stuff that's over my head, but I'm gonna rewatch it just to learn more about it. You are in real estate yourself and have a lot of knowledge about all that. And if we want to finish up right here, we did a great interview. If you want to let us know, do you have any legislation that you would be planning on bringing with you, or is there anyone you would be excited to work with in New Jersey State Senate?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset, and I know not everybody in my party might share my enthusiasm, but I'm of the mindset that working with the Republican Party rather than against them is probably in our best interest as libertarians. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is, when you boil down purely from a policy perspective, we're probably aligned on 80+% of the issues. There might be that 20% differential. And the reality is, you don't even have consensus within the Libertarian Party. There's people that, that disagree with me on some of which are based on libertarian principles, that don't agree with, like, that's part of it's like herding cats, right? Like trying to get libertarians to agree on something. I think that's, and that, quite frankly, to be candid, I think that's part of the problem, with the party getting the traction that they should have at this point, being as old as they are and as large as we are. But, I think that libertarians, are obviously more aligned with the Republican Party, and I would like to see, um, I would like to see more conservatism brought to the Senate and to the Assembly, and I look forward to working with the Republican Party, not against them. Um, and the other legislatures, because the other people that are in the Senate and the Assembly, because of the fact that there are certain things, socially, that we probably also align with. So I think the Libertarian Party has a unique position in the fact that there are certain social issues, that we would be able to work with the Democrats on. And there's a lot of other things, fiscally and otherwise, that we would be able to work with the Republican Party on. And that's kind of what you need, right? Like, you want somebody that's going to be able to advocate for, both sides of these issues. And I certainly would like to know what to expect from the people that are, elected. And anymore, I just don't know what to expect from people. I think
that's fine.
I just look at it. I feel like moderates stand for nothing, and I know some people think that that's like kind of like a crazy concept, but I know what to expect from somebody that's far right, and I know what to expect from somebody that's far left. I don't know what to expect from somebody that sits in the middle and isn't principled. And I would just like to see some principled conservatism, being brought back to the state house. And that's, kind of the platform that I'm running on, is to have this whole idea of being libertarian and being conservative are mutually exclusive things. They're not. There are elements of conservatism and elements of libertarianism that that kind of intersect, and that's where my ideology kind of comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I personally choose to live a conservative lifestyle, but I respect other people's choices to live how they choose to live, and I don't think that the government should be defining those things or interceding in how other people choose to live their lives.
Yeah, well said. And I do hear a lot of libertarians have the same sentiments. So it's great that a libertarian in New Jersey is running. Thank you for joining us. This is Legislative District 2. I actually had experience in Legislative District 1. I look at the bills that are drafted. I look at the way that people vote, and I would love to help you going forward, let you know about the bills that are coming up and how you can support them. But this is Shawn Peck running as a Libertarian candidate, Atlantic County Legislative District 2 for State Senate. If you'd like to tell people where they can find more about your campaign before the elections.
Sure. So on Facebook, I'm Shawn Peck, LD2 Libertarian candidate, and on the World Wide Web, it's www.shawnpeck4FORNJ.com. My policy positions and some background information is also on there as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining me tonight, for having a free speech discussion. A lot of people won't. A lot of candidates actually, right after they get done recording this with me, tell me that they got a call from the NJGOP to not do this. So again, thank you so much for joining. And please subscribe to the NJ First podcast on YouTube and Rumble. Follow on X, formerly known as Twitter. Thanks for joining, guys.